So it looks like Kendrick Lamar was able to obtain another accolade in the Big 25. From what it looks like Kendrick Lamar is currently holding the number one song and the number one album in the US at the same time with Luther and GNX. He remains the only rapper to achieve this so far in 2025. It looks like Luther has been dominating the charts as well as Not Like Us and TV Off, but Luther has been staying at number one quite consistently for some time after GNX's release. It was reported by several outlets, including Double XL magazine, that Kendrick Lamar was able to secure the spot for number one on the Billboard Top 200 chart, and it looks like only 500 units prevented Drake and Party Next Door from getting the number one slot. Triple S for You sits at number two this week. GNX sold 90,500 units as to where Triple S for You had sold 90,000. And I've been seeing people go back and forth with this conversation right here. These 500 units have a lot of people talking, have a lot of people going back and forth, expressing how they feel about these albums competing with each other. But I think the real thing to point out, I think the key thing to mention between these two albums is that Drake is going against an album that's been out for months now, bro. This album came out in late 2024 in November. So while people are arguing about these 500 units, you got to remember that Drake is competing with an album that's been out for months. And it's crazy how an album that's been out for this long is competing with an album that came out less than a month ago, not even a month ago. It hasn't even been the 14th of March. This came out on Valentine's Day, February 14th. And as this is being recorded, this is March 11th. It hasn't even been a month since it's been out yet. So is this really even a competition at the end of the day? I'm just being honest, bro, because people are going back and forth with these 500 units. When I think the bigger picture in all of this, we're talking about one album that's been out for months versus an album that hasn't even been out for a whole month yet. And GNX and Kendrick Lamar, as well as SZA, continue to break records. They continue to obtain accolades. As you could take a look here, chart data has recently came out with the top 10 on this week's Artist 100. And as you could see, the top 10 results are in. Kendrick Lamar, 10th week at number one. 10th week at number one. Very impressive considering the competition that he's going against. You have Morgan Wallen at number two. You have Tate McRae at number three. You have Sabrina Carpenter at number four. SZA at number five. Drake at number six. Billie Eilish at number seven. Lisa at number eight. Number nine, Chappelle Roan. And number 10, Bruno Mars. But the fact that Kendrick Lamar has been able to hold this position for 10 weeks straight is very impressive, bro. It looks like Kendrick Lamar has been able to hold this spot since the beginning of 2025. I think 10 weeks from now would be January 1st, if anything. So since the beginning of the year, it looks like he's been able to hold this spot, and nobody has been able to take him off from this position as far as the top artist goes in the top 10. So you have Kendrick Lamar, number one in the top 10 artists, number one in the top 10 albums, and number one in singles with Luther featuring SZA. And I'll say it time and time again, bro. Over here, I personally don't think that numbers matter. I don't think that sales matter. I think the music speaks more than the sales. I think music speaks more than the first week. But you have people constantly arguing over 500 units about albums, about this, about that. Look, man, at the end of the day, GNX has been out for a really long time, and it looks like nothing is moving it from its spot. Whether Triple S for You, Drake does something or not, it looks like GNX isn't moving from this spot. I think the Drake fans that are arguing about this album and that are upset that GNX is number one, I think them on the internet arguing and making excuses about these 500 units, instead of making excuses about these 500 units, and instead of talking negative online, how about you go and stream the album? How about you support the artist that you're fighting for by listening to the music that they drop instead of going on the internet and trying to argue a point about 500 units and about what you think about sales and how you feel like it's rigged? How about instead of doing all of that, you go to your streaming platform You go to your app, you go to your mobile app and listen to the songs. There's a lot of arguing, there's a lot of back and forth coming from Drake fans about Kendrick Lamar having the number one spot, when in reality, they should just be listening to the music. Because there's no way an album that hasn't even been out for a month yet should be losing to an album that's been out for months. It's crazy because I see everybody hyping this Drake album, and everybody from that side likes to talk about numbers, but the numbers aren't showing the support that you see online. Maybe because they're so caught up on being online and arguing about numbers online, they're not actually listening to the music outside of their arguments. Because if that was the case, GNX wouldn't be at number one, but it is. But like I said, the numbers don't matter. The numbers don't matter. The music matters. The music is what means a lot. Instead of Drake fans making excuses, how about you go and listen to Drake's album? I heard they're paying people to listen to it anyways. You might as well get $1,000 out of it instead of trying to do a smear campaign online. Because that's all I see, bro. All I see is, oh, 500 this, 1,500 this. It looks like they did it again. So you're so caught up on these numbers, you're not even listening to the music. I see more arguments online than I do see people actually listening to the music that Drake had dropped. And if his music was being listened to like the way they say, how come it's falling out of the charts? Why is Drake falling out of the charts and Kendrick is able to stay on the charts? But it looks like Kendrick Lamar is still able to hold the title, man. It looks like he's still able to hold the number one spot for album and single, as well as having the number one spot for an artist. Very impressive to see. And I think at this point, the music is going to speak for itself. A lot of people like to complain about numbers and payola and things like that. But instead of arguing, I think it's just best to listen to the music and let the music speak for itself, because the numbers will update, and they've been updating for almost a month now. And it looks like nothing has changed. GNX is still at the top. Triple S4U is still sliding down the charts. And I think all the back and forth that people are doing online is not going to change that. The only way that's going to change if people listen to the album. But if the album didn't do well, then what does that tell you? There's a reason why GNX is in the number one spot, and it's been over like 18 weeks since it's been out. So shout out to Kendrick Lamar for having the number one album, having the number one song, and being the number one artist in the Big 25. The only artist to be able to complete those three accolades at the same time. The biggest ones obviously being the album and the single. Shout out to him for doing this. And like I said, if you support the artists and their music, support the music. It'll be better for you to do that than to argue about numbers online. That's all I'm saying, bro. Let the music speak for itself. But congratulations to Kendrick Lamar. Congratulations to SZA as well. Shout out to everybody tapped in. Y'all tell me how you feel about this. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video, man. Peace. Keep it a legend.